Victorian Tearoom. Close your eyes and let yourself arrive somewhere warm tonight. Somewhere the rain is just a sound on glass, and the tea is always hot, and the afternoon has no intention of ending. You have been outside in the weather for too long today. The kind of day where the cold gets into your coat and stays there, where the pavements are dark and wet, and the sky has been the colour of old pewter since before you woke up. But that is all behind you now, because you have found exactly the right place to be. The door is closed behind you, and the warmth of the room has already begun to reach you, moving across the air from the fireplace in the corner, like something offered with both hands. You are in a Victorian tea room, and the rain is falling outside, and there is nowhere else in the world you need to be. Picture it clearly. A narrow street in an old Scottish town, the buildings either side tall and grey and solid, their sandstone darkened by the rain, their windows glowing amber in the late afternoon. The tea room occupies the ground floor of one of these buildings. Its frontage painted a deep bottle green, its window fogged with warmth from the inside. The word tea room written in gold leaf on the glass, in letters that are slightly uneven in that way that makes them beautiful rather than wrong. A small bell above the door rings as you push it open, a bright clear sound, and then the warmth and the smell of the place come out to meet you all at once. Warm tea, fresh baking, a wood fire, lavender faintly from somewhere, and underneath all of it the clean sweet smell of rain in an old building that has been in this spot for 150 years and is entirely comfortable with that fact. You step inside and the door swings closed behind you, and the street and the rain and the cold are immediately, completely someone else's problem. You stand just inside the door for a moment, the way you always do when you come in from the rain, not moving, just adjusting, letting the warm air settle around you, letting your eyes take in the room, letting the part of your body that was tensed against the weather understand that it can stop now, that the weather is out there and you are in here, and there is a significant difference between the two. Your shoulders come down, your jaw unclenches. You did not know either of these things had happened until they reversed themselves, which is perhaps how it always is with the small tensions of a cold and rainy day. You carry them without noticing and only feel them leave. The room receives you without ceremony, which is exactly right. Nobody looks up, nobody makes a fuss. The tea room simply continues being what it is, warm and quiet and smelling of tea and baking, and you are simply in it now, which is all that was ever required. The tea room is small and perfect. 6 tables, perhaps 7, each one covered with a white linen cloth that is not quite perfectly pressed, which somehow makes it more inviting rather than less. The slight creases suggest use, suggest the dozens of other afternoons that have happened here, the hundreds of other people who sat at these tables and drank their tea and let the rain do whatever it needed to do outside. The tablecloths are white, but the napkins are a soft cream, folded simply, tucked beneath the edge of each saucer. On each table, a small vase with a single flower. Today it is a pale pink rose, slightly open, its petals just beginning to turn at the edges, in that way that makes a rose most beautiful. The walls are papered in a pattern of small dark green leaves on a cream background, the paper original to the building by the look of it, its edges slightly soft at the ceiling, and skirting where time has loosened the paste. In two places the pattern doesn't quite match at the seam, which you notice only because you are looking carefully, because you have nothing else you need to attend to, because this is the kind of room that rewards looking carefully and has enough small details to sustain it. Framed botanical prints hang on the walls, the kind that were produced in great numbers in the Victorian era, accurate and beautiful, each one showing a plant in careful detail with its Latin name in small copper plate beneath. Ferns mostly, and flowering plants from Scotland and further afield. A spray of heather, a wild rose identical to the ones on the tables. A thistle rendered with an almost reverent attention to the detail of its purple crown. The ceiling is high for such a small room. Pressed tin painted white, its pattern of repeating squares and small floral centers, the kind of detail you only notice when you look up, which you do now, tilting your head back and taking in the whole ceiling at once before bringing your gaze back down to the room. The fire burns in a small cast iron fireplace in the far corner, its grate glowing, its surround tiled in the deep blue and white of Delft pottery, the tiles painted with windmills and fishing boats, and small figures walking across flat landscapes very different from the Highland hills outside. The contrast between the tiles' Dutch serenity and the Scottish rain on the window seems entirely appropriate somehow. The world is full of things that don't obviously belong together and yet do. A small mantel shelf above the fireplace holds a collection of objects that have accumulated there over years, rather than been arranged with any intention. A pair of silver candlesticks, unlit, their surfaces darkened at the base where polishing cloths have not quite reached. A small framed watercolour of a harbour, boats at anchor, grey water under a grey sky. The kind of painting that asks nothing dramatic of you, but rewards a long look. A china figurine of a spaniel, its painted expression one of absolute and undemanding devotion. A box of long matches, a dried sprig of heather in a narrow vase, its colour faded from purple to the softest grey lavender, beautiful in its dryness in a way that fresh heather is not. You look at all of these things in turn and feel the particular pleasure of a room that has been added to slowly and loved consistently, where nothing is there by accident and yet nothing was placed by a designer. The woman who runs the tea room appears from the kitchen with the unhurried efficiency of someone entirely at home in their work. She is perhaps 60, her grey hair pinned up beneath a cream apron that has clearly been laundered many times and is softer for it, her expression warm but unsentimental. The expression of someone who has been making people comfortable in the rain for decades and knows exactly how to do it without making a performance of it. She gestures to a table beside the window, the one with the best view of the rain-darkened street, and you take it without needing to be asked twice. The chair is wooden, its seat cushioned in a fabric that matches the green of the wallpaper, its back slightly higher than modern chairs tend to be. The kind of chair that was designed when sitting meant actually sitting. Upright but not uncomfortable. Settled but not slouched. You pull it out and sit down and feel immediately that this is the right chair in the right mood, and exactly the right kind of afternoon. She brings you a menu, though you barely look at it, because the choice is obvious and always has been. Pot of tea, something warm from the kitchen, and as much time as the afternoon will allow. You order, and she disappears back through the door, and the tea room settles back into its own quiet rhythm. At the only other occupied table, two elderly women are talking in low voices over the remains of a cream tea. Their conversation the warm, unhurried kind that requires decades of friendship to produce. You cannot make out the words, only the cadence, the gentle rise and fall, the occasional laugh, the long, comfortable silences between exchanges that need no filling. They have been friends long enough that silence is not something that needs to be managed. It simply is, and it is good. The rain intensifies briefly against the window, a sudden heavier wave of it, and the fire crackles in response as though aware of the change in weather, rising a little, settling a little, performing its small private adjustment to the afternoon. The tea arrives in a proper pot. Not a small pot designed to produce a single cup and be done with it, but a generously sized pot of dark brown ceramic, its surface worn smooth with washing, its lid fitted with a small knob that is slightly chipped on one side in a way that makes it look cherished rather than damaged. Beside it, a small jug of milk, a bowl of sugar cubes with tongs, a cup and saucer in white china with a thin blue border, a teaspoon with a pattern on its handle that you cannot quite make out without picking it up. You pick it up. The pattern is a thistle. Of course it is. You pour the tea and watch the dark liquid meet the milk and swirl into something warmer and lighter. And you wrap both hands around the cup and bring it close and breathe in the steam before you drink. The smell of tea in a warm room on a rainy afternoon is one of the great uncelebrated pleasures of being alive. Not dramatic, not novel, not the kind of thing anyone writes poems about, but deeply and reliably good in a way that nothing more exciting quite manages to match. You drink, and the warmth of it moves through you from the inside at exactly the same moment as the warmth from the fire continues its patient work from the outside. And for a moment, you are simply held between two sources of warmth, the cup in your hands and the fire at your back, and the rain on the glass, and the low murmur of the two friends at their table, and the smell of baking coming from the kitchen, and the soft tick of a clock on the wall that you hadn't noticed until now. The clock is a small wooden mantel clock on a shelf between two botanical prints. You study it for a moment. Its cream face with black Roman numerals, its dark walnut case polished to a depth that paint cannot replicate. The hands show 4:30, though the time feels entirely ceremonial in a room like this. Decorative rather than functional. A gesture toward the existence of time rather than any serious engagement with it. You watch the second hand make its slow circuit and feel the watching of it slow something in you. Your breathing matching the tick, almost unconsciously, finding the rhythm of the room. You close your eyes for just a moment. When you open them again, a plate has appeared on the table. A slice of something dark and dense, gingerbread, you think, or perhaps a treacle loaf. Its surface dusted with a fine powdering of something sweet. Two small curls of butter beside it on the plate, a cake fork resting at an angle. You have no memory of this arriving, which means you were more relaxed than you knew, and this realization relaxes you further. a pleasant spiral downward into the particular piece of this particular afternoon. You eat slowly because there is no reason to eat quickly, and the gingerbread is exactly what it should be, dense and warm and dark with spice, the butter melting into it as you spread it. The sweetness not excessive, but just sufficient, just enough to be a comfort rather than a statement. Outside, the rain continues. You watch it through the window, the way it falls on the pavement in dark splashes, the way it runs along the gutter in a constant stream, the way it catches the light from the tea room window and turns briefly bright before disappearing into the general grey of the afternoon. A figure passes outside. Their umbrella turns sideways against the wind, their pace quick and purposeful, their whole body angled towards wherever they are going. You watch them pass and disappear around the corner and feel a simple and uncomplicated gratitude that you are not them, that you are here in the warm, with your tea and your gingerbread and your window seat and your fire, with nowhere to be and no reason to hurry. A van moves slowly through the street, its wipers working hard, its headlights already on in the mid-afternoon dimness, throwing yellow cones of light across the wet road. A dog on a lead pulls its owner past the window, nose down, entirely absorbed in whatever the rain-soaked pavement is telling it. Its owner hunched inside a waterproof jacket, resigned to the weather in the particularly Scottish way that suggests not defeat but a kind of long-standing accommodation. The dog at least seems to be having a good time. You watch all of this with the detached, benevolent interest of someone who is entirely comfortable and has no stake in the proceedings. The street is performing its afternoon for you through the glass, and you are its audience, warm and unhurried, your cup in your hands, your feet close to the fire. The two elderly women at the other table have finished their cream tea and are now simply sitting, their cups long empty, their conversation reduced to the occasional quiet word. One of them is looking out of the same window as you, watching the rain with the expression of someone who has watched a great deal of rain in their lifetime and found it, on balance, entirely acceptable. The other has her eyes half closed, her hands folded on the table, her breathing slow and even. She is very nearly asleep, and she does not appear to mind in the least. You refill your cup from the pot. The tea has steeped longer now and is darker and stronger, and you add a little more milk and wrap your hands around the cup again and feel that this exact combination of warmth and stillness and rain and the smell of baking and the sound of the clock and the fire and the low conversation of strangers who have known each other for 40 years, that this is one of the things worth being alive for. Not a dramatic thing, not a large thing, but a real thing and a good one, and available to you right now, entirely and without reservation. You find yourself thinking about the tea room itself, not analytically, not with any particular direction, but in the loose and pleasant way that thoughts move in warm rooms on rainy afternoons. 150 years. That is a long time to be making tea for people. The building was here before the car, before the telephone, before electric light. The women who ran it in those early decades wore long skirts and pinned their hair up in ways that would now seem extraordinary. And the tea cost a different currency, and the street outside would have been quieter and louder in different ways. Fewer engines, more horses, the sound of ironmongery and trade carrying further on the air. But the rain would have been the same rain. The fire would have been the same fire. The feeling of coming in from a wet afternoon and wrapping your hands around a warm cup and letting the weather be someone else's problem. That would have been exactly the same. You are part of a long tradition of people taking shelter here. A long tradition of wet coats on the backs of chairs and grateful sighs and cups of tea wrapped in both hands. The tea room has absorbed all of them. All those afternoons, all that rain, all that gratitude, into its walls and its ceiling and the very air of it. And what you are breathing now is not just wood smoke and bacon, but the accumulated comfort of 150 years of people finding exactly what they needed in a small room in a rainy street in a Scottish town. The clock on the wall ticks. If you look at it properly now, a small wooden mantel clock on a shelf between two botanical prints, its face cream with black Roman numerals, its case a dark walnut that has been polished so many times, it has developed a depth of colour that paint cannot replicate. The hands show 4:30, but time in a tea room on a rainy afternoon is a different kind of time from the time that exists on station platforms and in offices and on the screens of phones. It is slower and fuller and less concerned with itself. The clock is ticking, yes, and the afternoon is passing, yes, but neither of these facts has any urgency attached to them. They are simply true the way many things are simply true without requiring anything from you. The fire settles, a small shift in the arrangement of the coals, a brief bright flicker as a new surface catches, and then the steady glow returns, the orange-red pulse of something well established and contentedly burning. The kitchen door opens, and the smell of fresh bacon moves through the room more strongly for a moment. Something yeasty and sweet, something just out of the oven, warm enough that you can feel it as well as smell it. A brief intensification of the room's already considerable warmth. The door swings closed again, and the smell settles back into the background, where it continues its quiet work of making everything feel safe and full and entirely sufficient. You refill your cup from the pot. The tea has steeped longer now and is darker and stronger, and you add a little more milk and wrap your hands around the cup again and feel that this exact combination of warmth and stillness and rain and the smell of bacon and the sound of the clock and the fire and the low conversation of strangers who have known each other for 40 years. That this is one of the things worth being alive for. Not a dramatic thing, not a large thing, but a real thing and a good one, and available to you right now, entirely and without reservation. The afternoon deepens. The light outside has been grey all day, but it is a different grey now, a slightly darker and more definitive grey. The grey of an afternoon that has quietly become an early evening without making any announcement. The rain has not stopped. If anything, it has settled into a more committed version of itself. A steady and purposeful rain rather than the variable rain of the afternoon. The kind that has decided it will be raining for the foreseeable future and has made its peace with that decision. Inside the tea room, the lamp on the counter has been switched on, its warm light adding itself to the fire's glow. and the overall effect is of a room that has drawn itself inward against the evening, gathered its warmth around itself, made its preparations against the dark and the wet outside. The botanical prints on the walls catch the lamplight and seem to glow very faintly. The careful illustrations of ferns and flowers, lit from outside the frame as though they are plants in a window, rather than images on a wall. The two elderly women have left finally, with the slow ceremony of people who are genuinely reluctant to go. The careful gathering of coats and bags, the brief exchange with the proprietress at the counter, the laughter at something said, the opening of the door and the brief intrusion of the rain sound from outside, before the door closed again and the room was quiet and yours alone. You are the last customer. The proprietress comes to clear the neighbouring table, moving quietly and efficiently, stacking cups and folding the used napkins, straightening the small vase with its slightly open rose. She glances at you with an expression that contains no expectation whatsoever, no gentle suggestion that the tea room might be closing, no pointed look at the door. She simply meets your eye briefly, gives a small nod that means everything is perfectly fine, and you should take exactly as long as you need, and disappears back through the kitchen door with her tray. The kitchen door swings behind her, and the smell of the day's baking comes through once more, warm and yeasty and sweet. And then the door settles, and the room is quiet again. This is the gift of a tea room that has been doing this for 150 years. It knows exactly how to let someone rest. This thought does not make you feel as though you should leave. It makes you feel as though the room is entirely yours, as though the tea room has offered itself to you for the remainder of the evening. Fire, lamp and rain, and the smell of baking, and the tick of the clock, and all of it yours, without obligation, without time limit, simply because you are here and the room is warm, and the rain is falling, and there is, in truth, nowhere better to be. You have stopped thinking in any meaningful sense. The thoughts that move through your mind now are not really thoughts. They are more like weather, like the shapes clouds make, interesting for a moment and then gone, leaving no trace. The afternoon, the gingerbread, the two women and their 40-year friendship, the thistle on the teaspoon, the delft tiles around the fireplace, with their improbable Dutch windows. These things pass through and leave only a general residue of want, a felt sense of having been somewhere good and real and quietly extraordinary. There is something in a room like this that actively resists overthinking. The low ceiling and the lamplight and the smell of tea and the sound of rain, they conspire gently against the part of the mind that wants to plan and review and anticipate. They offer instead an alternative. Simply be here. Simply be warm. Simply let the afternoon have been what it was, and the evening be what it is, and the night be what it will be, without trying to organize any of it or extract any lesson from it, or prepare for whatever comes next. There is nothing to prepare for. There is only the tea room, and the rain, and the fire, and you in your chair with your hands around your cup, and your feet close to the warmth, and your breathing slow, and your mind finally, gratefully quiet. Your breathing has found its own pace without your intervention. In and out. The cup is still warm in your hands, though the tea in it has grown cool. You hold it anyway, because the holding of it is its own small comfort. The weight and roundness of it, the slight roughness of the ceramic under your thumbs, where the glazing has worn with washing. The fire in its tiled corner burns steadily, its coals deep red and orange, the occasional small blue flame moving briefly across the surface of the piece before disappearing. The cast iron grate ticks very quietly as it expands in the heat. A tiny, intimate sound, the sound of the fire making itself at home. The rain on the window has become something you are no longer really hearing, so much as feeling. It is part of the texture of the room now, woven into everything else, inseparable from the warmth and the lamplight and the smell of tea and the tick of the clock. It is simply what is happening outside, and what is happening outside is the world doing its thing, and what is happening inside is you, warm and still and heavy with comfort, letting the world do its thing. Let your body settle now into the fullness of this rest. Feel the weight of your arms, your hands still loosely around the cup. Let them be heavy. Let them rest where they are without effort, without holding on to anything. Feel the weight of your legs, the warmth at your feet from the fire that has been patient and generous all afternoon. Let your shoulders drop the last small distance they have been holding. That last half inch of tension you carry always. The residue of a day spent moving through a world that asks things of you constantly. Let it go now. It has nothing to push against here. Let your jaw be still. Let the small muscles around your eyes soften and release. The ones that have been working all day without your noticing, processing and responding and anticipating. Let your forehead smooth. Let the space between your brows widen gently. Let your whole face become simply a face at rest, unheld, unburdened, belonging entirely to this warm and quiet room. Let your eyes behind their closed lids find the darkness behind the darkness and rest there. Not the darkness of the street outside, rain grey and uncertain, but the warm inner darkness of a person who is entirely safe and entirely comfortable and has nothing left to do tonight but breathe slowly in and breathe slowly out and let the tea room hold them in its 150-year-old warmth for as long as it takes. You are in the tea room and the rain is on the window and the fire is burning and the clock is ticking and the smell of the afternoon, tea and gingerbread and lavender and wood smoke and old paper and rain on stone. It's all around you like something you could hold on to if you needed to. You do not need to. You're already held. The Victorian Tearoom holds you with its warmth and its lamplight, and its faded wallpaper, and its botanical prints, and its small tiled fireplace that has been burning on rainy afternoons, like this one, for 150 years. It does not need you to do anything. It simply asks you to be here, in this chair, at this window, with the rain outside and the warmth inside, and all the afternoon behind you, and nothing ahead of you but this deepening, this quieting, this gradual and complete release. Your breathing is very slow. The rain falls on the old glass. The fire glows in its corner. The clock marks time that has stopped having any urgency at all. Outside, The evening has taken the last of the light. The street beyond the window is dark now, except for the amber pools of the old street lamps. Their light broken and scattered by the rain into something almost beautiful. The wet pavement reflecting them in long, trembling lines that shift with each gust of wind. The buildings either side are dark at their upper stories, their sandstone faces invisible, only the occasional lit window suggesting the lives being lived behind them. The families at their evening table, the solitary figures at their own windows looking out at the same way you're looking at from the other side of the glass. A cat appears on the windowsill outside, appearing from nowhere the way cats do, pressing itself briefly against the glass before thinking better of it and disappearing back into the dark. You watch the space where it was for a moment, the empty windowsill with its rivulets of rain, and feel a quiet amusement, and then that too passes, and you are back to the simple fact of the room, and the warmth and the fire and the rain. The proprietress appears briefly from the kitchen, crosses to the door and turns the sign from open to closed, without any particular ceremony, as though this is simply one of many small tasks in an evening's work, rather than the formal marking of an ending. She catches your eye and gives the same small nod she gave before. You are welcome. You are not being rushed. Stay as long as you need. Then she disappears back through the kitchen door, and the quiet sound of washing up begins. Very distant, very gentle, the final rhythm of the tea room's day. But you are in here, and in here is warm, and in here the lamp is soft and the fire is steady, and the rain on the window is just a sound, a good sound, a sound that has been telling people they are safe and inside for as long as there have been windows and rain to fall on them. You are safe and inside. You are warm and still and heavy with an afternoon's accumulated comfort. The tea and the gingerbread and the fire and the clock, and the two women who have gone home now to their own warm rooms, but whose presence lingers in the room somehow. A pleasant after-image of a long and happy friendship, absorbed into the walls and the tablecloths and the air of the tea room, the way all the other good afternoons have been absorbed, layer on layer, year on year. Let the sounds carry you now. The rain on the old glass, steady and soft and continuous. The same rain that has been falling on this building since before anyone alive was born. The same rain that fell on the people who papered these walls and hung these prints and tiled this fireplace with their Dutch windmills and their improbable serenity. The fire in its corner, breathing its slow breath. The coals deep red and patient, giving their heat without drama or urgency. The clock marking the gentle passage of an evening that asks nothing of you. The distant, barely audible sound of washing up from the kitchen. The final quiet work of a place that has done what it always does, and done it well. These sounds are all you need. They are more than enough. They have been enough for everyone who ever sat in this room and let the weather do what weather does outside while they were warm inside. And they are enough for you tonight. Outside, the rain is falling on the old Scottish town, on the sandstone building and the wet pavements and the amber street lamps and the empty streets where the day's business has long since ended and gone home. It is falling on the rooftops and the gutter pipes and the stone window ledges and the quiet churchyard at the end of the street, where the old headstones have been reading the weather for centuries, without comment. It is falling on the hills beyond the town, on the heather and the bracken and the long slopes of grass that roll away northward into the dark. It does not need you to watch it or think about it or make anything of it. It simply falls, as it always has, as it always will. And you are in here. Warm, still, held. Your breathing is barely there now. In and out. The room is warm. The rain falls. The fire glows its deep and patient red. And somewhere between one breath and the next, between the rain and the fire and the tick of the clock and the smell of tea in old rooms and 150 years of rainy afternoons, you let go of the last thing you were holding. And you sleep